Welcome back to Rich Mama's Club. And yeah, looks like I'm popping pills because I am. This is actually my anxiety medication that I was prescribed back in, where's the dates? I'm gonna say it's been about 2 months. Okay, date field was July 26th of this year. It's almost October. It's the last week of September right now. And I just wanted to let you know about what my experience was and just how I have dealt with anxiety throughout my life. Okay, so I started to realize I had anxiety in college. I'm 32 now, so this is a little bit over 10 years. It had to be about my sophomore year. I had just left Harrisdale State, which is a HBCU here, and went to the community college. And I think life was just really starting to hit me. But I was in a really destructive relationship, just trying to still do well in school. I had left the university for community college, which, if you know, like anybody who has done that, people look at you crazy and they say all these other things, all of those things, right? I think I was just overwhelmed with life, right? I kept locking my keys in the car, just doing all kind of things, and I would feel like I couldn't breathe. So I started to go to therapy, and that would help on-campus therapy, and which is a great resource if you're in college. Use the campus therapy system. They're there to help, and it's usually included with your tuition if you're planning on going back to school. But that was like my first experience with going to therapy and realizing that I had anxiety, and it was super helpful. So throughout college, after sophomore year, even going back to a university when I went to UMSL, I stayed in therapy, and eventually I got my anxiety under control when I let go of some things. So I realized that it really starts to manifest even more when I'm really trying to be in control of things and I'm overwhelmed. And I really struggle to articulate sometimes when I'm feeling bad, or, you know, with my body. So, but it's this book called The Body Keeps Score, and your body will start to catch up with all of your lived experiences that you might not be able to talk about. So, fast forward, I've had panic attacks where I feel like I can't breathe, all these other things throughout my life. But recently this year, they just kind of got out of control. It was like about 90 days straight. It wasn't a day where I felt like I could not breathe. Like, it was just like I couldn't breathe. I was like scared I was gonna die. I was always telling my husband to come back home. Like, just so many things. And part of me knew it was anxiety, but my anxiety had never manifest as I don't even know the right word. It had just never been this severe. That's it. It had never been this severe. I was going to the ER a ton of times. I don't even want to look at those bills. I just blocked the number. No, I just don't like, I don't even want to look at ER bills. So I went to like 3 different ERs, and they couldn't find anything. So they were doing MRIs, EKGs, all of the things, right? Because I felt like I couldn't breathe. My chest was tight. I was blacking out. I had like vertigo, so many other things, right, y'all? Like, just all of this from stress. And I knew that stress would have different effects on the body. But the difference in now is that I was drinking a lot, was having a lot of wine at night because I was really stressed. I was taking a lot of caffeine because I was really tired. My daughter wouldn't sleep. And I just really felt overwhelmed. Also compounding correlation events. We had bed bugs almost like for the first year of my daughter's life, which was so freaking hard. Like, and when I say like it wasn't consistent for a whole year, but it was a long time because them joints kept coming back. So in between, like, financially going through ruin, having those things, and not knowing how that happened, if we brought them home from the hospital or if it was people coming over to visit or people just being in my house, all these other things. So I just felt this huge sense of just like shame and guilt, and I would hold my baby at night so I feel like she wouldn't get big, you know. And then at the time my husband was still working at the post office, so he had this crazy schedule and would take off time to come and help. And I don't even know, I don't think I could have made it without him, but like, it was just so hard. And in the midst of that, when we finally get out of that situation, then my dad dies, and I have this really long drawn out traumatic relationship with my dad. And I feel like I had been waiting for 10 years for him to die. Some of y'all gonna be like, oh my God, what do you mean? Like, well, he had literally been dying for 10 years. And when I say this, like, everything was always, oh, your dad's gonna die, your dad's gonna die, your dad's gonna die. So when you hear this so much, it's like you're on pins and needles waiting for someone to die. And it's just really not a great way to live your life. And like I literally say, for 10 years, he had a stroke a little bit over 10 years ago now, because it's been a year since he's passed away. And just mentally, he never recovered. Physically, he could have recovered. Financially, he could have recovered, but he started to feel worthless and have all this shame and guilt and all these other things, and he never recovered. So that just was a huge I don't know, like I feel like I kept moving and I kept going. I was in all these entrepreneur accelerators, just moving, like, you know, trying to keep up with having a baby, really still even being a newlywed, because we've been together 4 years, but married 3, and then we had a baby after, like, we just did a lot fast. So just life was lifing, right? And I knew all of the things to do, right? Like I knew the breathing mechanisms. I knew the mindfulness techniques. I knew how to exercise, all those other things. But I was also limited to what I could do on my own time, when I could sleep, all these other things, because my daughter was just so demanding. As much as I love her, I think that people don't talk about, you know, how hard it is really to be a parent, and really your life is not your own anymore. And it's, you know, selfish or selfless if you want to make it sound like you really are, you know, living, breathing, eating, trying to maintain, to take care of this other little human. And it's a lot of work, especially if you don't have a ton of, and I'm not going to say I did not have a ton of support. I feel like we could have had more. We could have been more prepared for what postpartum was going to look like. We could have been prepared for so many things. So imagine going through survival mode for, you know, 2 years, basically, having to move, the pest, losing everything, losing my dad, surviving the pandemic, business changing, all these other things. And then financially going into ruin when you work so hard to build up something, and just like, it just felt like my world was crumbling every single day, and nobody could understand like how hard it was for me to get to where I was, for just to watch for, you know, 1 or 2 incidents to take everything down. So I went to Essence with my best friend. Shout out to Kierica. We had a great time, and the whole time I was there, I think I had 2 small incidents over the 4 days where it felt like I couldn't breathe, but I noticed it was just me getting anxious because I was tired. So I was like, okay, you know what, I know I can see now the correlation, like, okay, I'm overwhelmed with how my life is set up right now. I'm overwhelmed with having my child 24/7. I'm overwhelmed with trying to build this business the way that I am. I'm just overwhelmed. So I came back and I made the executive decision. My husband had actually been doing some research about this school that was right around the corner. So putting my daughter in school helped tremendously. But before we did that, I actually got this medication, because it got to the point where I was just like, I feel like I'm going to die. Like I literally feel like I was going to die. Also, another contributing factor, a lot of women around my age were dying, like committing suicide, getting murdered, all these other things. So my anxiety was just to the 10th power about everything. So I went to the doctor. When I was going to the emergency room, they kept trying to put me on medication, but they kept trying to put me on Xanax, and I was not having it, because any of y'all know the rapper Future, he always talking about the Xanny family and how he gonna mix this with that. And I was like, I'm not gonna turn this to no crackhead. Like, there's just not it, right? No disrespect to anybody else, but like medicine can be like, especially if you follow the opioid crisis, like medicine it's a powerful thing, but then it also could be very detrimental, and especially to people of color. We don't have a great track record with substances. The substance abuse is really easy depending on what they give you. So I fought back to not get on Xanax, because it seemed like that's all they were offering me. So I really, of course, I probably should have asked if there were other things on the market, but when the first thing they recommended was Xanax, I was not, just because of the stigma around it and how I felt about how Future abuses substances like Xanax, right? So I went to Affinia Healthcare, which I absolutely love here. Whatever, like I cannot wait, like to like get to a point where I feel like I want to partner with Affinia, because I had amazing prenatal care. My doctor was amazing. So we I had to do like a walk-in appointment, and I got to see this other doctor, and she said, well, there are other options. So that's how I end up getting this. It's so crazy. I don't know how to pronounce this, but I'm gonna put it down here. It starts with the E. I don't know. She said Lexapro is like the name brand. This is like the off brand of it. And I take like one little small pill. They're really, really small. Really, really small. It's so funny. When I first got on them, my mom was like, oh, your grandma's on that too. And my grandma, she's interesting. So I was like, it was a little discouraging. But what I love about this drug, in particular, is that I haven't had any side effects. The first day I didn't do anything because I didn't want to know what the side effects could be. But the only thing that it could have done, and she said, it might cause you to be drowsy. With it being such small doses, like taking this consistently, it builds up in your system, and then it can work without you taking it every day. So if you miss a day, it's okay, it's still in your system. So it took about a week for me to start feeling better, but then I looked up and I was like, oh babe, I haven't talked to my husband. I'm like, I haven't had an anxiety attack. He's like, you haven't. And they were so bad. So when I noticed myself starting to get it, I'm like, oh, I'm probably overwhelmed, or I'm sleepy and I need to do something. But the reason I wanted to share this is because I feel like there's so much stigma, especially in the Black community, about again, taking medication, going to therapy, and all those other things. And I personally have been able to benefit from all of them, right? But in whatever season you are in life, shout out to my BFF Kiera, because she was like, friend, if you need the medication, take the medication. And it really kind of helped me in a sense of like, like, hey, sometimes we can't do it alone. And it's really hard for you to sometimes just sit and think that, because someone else could do it this way, because they can do it natural, like, get the help however you can get the help. Just make sure that you advocate for yourself, that if you feel something off, like they said, if you have any suicidal thoughts, let them know, stop taking the medication or whatever. But for me, thus far, a few months in, this medication has been life-changing for me. It's been life-changing for me in so many different ways, with just getting my mind back and being able to move forward and feel more confident, and not because like I said, every day I felt like I was gonna die, like where I would cry and I'm just praying, I'm like, God, like what's going on? So now I feel like I have more peace. My baby's in school, so I have more personal time, hence why you're probably seeing this shirt again, because I'm batch recording. But I'm just really grateful for these resources. So ask questions. This actually was covered by our insurance. I think I only paid like a $10 or $20 copay. I need to actually go refill my prescription, but I highly recommend it. So if you need to get on anxiety medication, speaking from someone who, when I first originally took the appointment, like when she did my scale, like I was almost at the highest that you could have for severe anxiety, to almost just a month later having like a 3, so almost like not having any kind of anxious reactions or how my body was reacting. So just to think that like your life could totally change by something, two things: one, putting my daughter in school, getting more help, and then taking the anxiety medication. I'm grateful, so like I said, this is a 90-day supply. I'm almost out of it, so I'm going to definitely go pick up the rest of my medication. She gave me a year worth of it, and just I might not have to take it forever, but I'm grateful that I have it right now, because I truly needed it, right? So no shame, no stigma. If you need it, go get it. You're worth not feeling anxious. And we're just in a society where there's a lot of things to be anxious about, especially if you're a millennial. We don't know if the market's going to crash. You don't know if your student loan is going to be there. You have children. You don't know if you can afford childcare. You don't know where you're going to live. You don't know, like, all the things, right? There's so many things to be anxious about. But like I said, like, get the help that you need, and tell somebody. If you're suffering, don't suffer in silence. So tell somebody, like, hey, I'm struggling with this. And like I said, my friends were a huge support, and me taking the next step. Of course, like, I definitely think your faith plays a huge role into it, but sometimes it's not enough. That's just the reality. Like, sometimes you can't pray it away. Like, I'm not saying that it's not effective or anything, or to try to speak against it, because I do believe your faith it affects your identity and your resilience and being able to cast some things upon, to God. But hey, look, God created the human being who created this medication for me to be able to take it, and I'm grateful for it. So God, thank you for however you can move and navigate in my life. And I hope that you take that into consideration as well, that, sometimes you can't pray it away. Sometimes you do need to go see a therapist. Sometimes you do need therapy. Sometimes you do need, medication. That's fine. God created all of those things, and they can work in tandem with you. God can work through those things. So I hope this was helpful. I'll see y'all later.